Hey folks, Steve Bird here. Got L. Douglas Hogan with me tonight for the author interview. This is Douglas is a real great guy. He's been out here to my farm. Him and his lovely wife came out and we did a lot of shooting and had a good old time. Hung out with him at several trade show types of events before, and he's a real fun guy. I know we'll have a good time tonight. So Douglas, say hi to everybody.
Hey guys, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to reach out and contact people this way while so many people are locked up in their homes during this event. Speaking of that, you are in Illinois, correct?
I am.
So,
Unfortunately,
as the wind leaves your sails.
I was born here. I know.
So what do you? I'm in Tennessee, where life has pretty much always been normal, with the exception of with the exception of eating in a restaurant. We've only know that there's a crisis because people on TV tell us we're supposed to be scared of something. But outside of that, it's business as usual. But being in Illinois, there's a slightly different mentality up there, politically speaking. So what are you seeing? What's your daily observations with what's going on in the world?
Well, it's funny that because every time somebody talks about Illinois, they automatically think that everybody's from Chicago.
You just ruled
when
by
in
Chicago.
fact, well, yeah, I mean, because Chicago pretty much governs what everybody in the state does. Even our, because our Springfield is our state capital, but everybody that should have a Springfield office at the state capital has their office in Chicago, and they work out of Chicago. And so it just goes without saying, that every time something political comes up, it's usually geared towards Chicago. Like the seed is planted there, and it kind of sprouts, southward. But their mindset, the mindset that it's everything in, I'd say south of I-80, which is about where Springfield is, everything south of there is mostly conservative. There's a lot of Democratic politics on the local end, but conservatively speaking, everybody is like conservative when it comes to like the pro-Second Amendment, the pro-life. They're fiscally conservative. It's just like the national politics. They don't really get too much involved in the national politics. So when you hear people talking about things that are going on the national level, you talk to somebody from Southern Illinois, for example, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be hearing, talking to somebody who agrees with what the Chicago politicians or the Springfield politicians are talking about. We got a completely different aspect or a view of everything that's going on, in the world as far as politics goes.
Yeah, sadly, that story is repeated a lot. Washington State. I lived in Washington State for 13 years, and it's a state of commercial fishermen and lumberjacks and such, and farmers. But it's ruled by King County, Pierce County, which is where Seattle and Tacoma is. A few square miles rules the whole state. So same thing in Illinois, same thing in New York, same thing in a lot of places, unfortunately. But if somebody were to not actually use political labels, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, and you were going to describe them, the current climate, without using those labels where you're at, what do you see as far as the controls being implemented by the government?
Without saying liberal, conservative, Democrat, or Republican?
Well, I mean, it's not that you can't say it. I just mean, what are your actual observations?
That everybody in Southern Illinois hates everything north of Springfield. So if it comes down to something stupid like martial law in Illinois, Chicago is going to burn, and everybody south of there, the gun-loving people are going to be. They're going to be sticking it together. The numbers are in Chicago. That's why they dictate everything politically that happens in Southern Illinois.
Right.
But
as far as the current crisis type thing goes,
yeah.
what do you see in there? What are the things that are being enforced and the limitations being placed on you? Nothing.
I mean, you got your corporate businesses like Walmart. They're doing just what corporate tells them to do, right? So, I live in a town of 6,000 people, but probably 2,000 of that is literally 2 prisons and a maximum security mental health facility where I work. So
now it all makes sense.
Right.
Are you sure you work there?
You might have. Well, 22 years. 22 years. I can't say it's something that doesn't rub off. But you walk into Walmart and you see the little arrows on the floor that says walk in this
Oh yeah,
direction.
we got
Like
those.
they're trying to control the sheep. Like
Right.
like the sheep have to be herded in this direction around this aisle and back through again up this aisle, and that's because Walmart's corporate. But you go to some small town, Uncle Joe shop, and they're not wearing their face masks. You might see some elderly people, wearing face masks because they just, they want to stay protected or whatnot. But for the most part, the people down here do whatever the heck they want to do. I wear a mask because I don't want. I might be asymptomatic. And what the science is saying is that 25% of the population is asymptomatic, so they don't even show any signs. They might be a carrier and not even know it. So I wear a mask, but that's just out of respect for everybody else. I don't want to make somebody sick. I'm not worried about it. I'd rather get it while I'm young, because what I think right now is happening, and this might be a question you guys later on down the road, but what I'm thinking from my mentality is anyway, I'd rather just get it while I'm young, and then when I'm old, I'll have immunities.
Well, we need herd immunity anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not. I mean, flu comes back every year. I mean,
Yeah,
every year there's a flu
with
season.
12 million deaths, and nobody's freaking out.
Right. So if it's every year there's a flu season, it's always going to come back. You can't lock up every year. Eventually, there's got to be some sort of herd immunity. And even though they come out with vaccines, you still got to get a new vaccine every year. So, and that vaccine might not be for
Maybe.
this particular strain that you're going to encounter. So, who knows? So, but so you basically you're explaining what I'm seeing in your typical small town America, which I'm not even a town, but if I go to the nearest town about a half hour away, I'm going to the hardware store. Nobody's everybody's just business as usual for the most part. Drive to the cities a little farther away, and you start seeing all the stuff you're talking about, with the corporate mandated behavior. But other than that, we don't have any restrictions. Does Illinois not have any government mandated edicts?
They do. Almost everything comes out of Chicago is some kind of an executive order. Like Governor I can pronounce his name, so I call him Pritzker. And Governor Pritzker, he mandated, as of May 1st, everybody must wear in public places a face mask, or they will be fined. Um, Good luck getting the police officers to enforce anything like that in Southern Illinois. I can tell you, as somebody who's a police officer for 10 years, if I was still serving, I would not be stopping someone for not wearing a face mask in a public place. Now, if somebody called me, if a business owner calls me and says this person refused to leave my business because he's not wearing a face mask, well, I have to do something about that,
Right.
you know. But that's a different situation entirely.
Right. Um, so they're not doing anything crazy like Washington State, where they've banned fishing, and Michigan, where they've banned backyard vegetable gardening, or something crazy
It,
like that.
that's it's kind of different because like when I drive around, I see these country clubs where it has like a select few members that get to join and be like the elite members of a group, and like those lakes will be open and people get to go fishing, they get to go camping.
And their golf
But
courses are still
anything,
open coast to coast.
yeah, well, in Illinois they're not. They're shut down pretty much. Anything that if it's private property, it's open. If it's state owned, it's shut down. But if it's federally owned, it's open.
Right. Well, here's a little observation. Your books, a lot of them are involved with martial law and such, and a lot of people who are living in the states that have the real draconian edicts coming down from the government. Michigan, Washington State, Virginia, being told they're under house arrest basically until June 10th. Um, there are some things, like, say, for example, I can't remember what state it was, but a family of four that live in the same house together could get in the same car and drive in that car to the lake, but then only two people in the family are allowed to get on their boat at a time. The other two have to wait in the car because you're only allowed to have two people on the boat because of the COVID.
Because of social distancing.
Yeah, right, but the car could have had four people in it, and
Yeah,
that wouldn't be a
and you're touching
problem.
each other. No,
Right.
and
And they
you
could have
sleep on the
come.
couch together.
Yeah, sitting on the same couch together, living together in the same house, and then they get in the same car and they drive to the lake, and they're not allowed to get on their boat, but two at a time.
Wait,
You
you see,
know
common
that
sense doesn't dictate anymore.
right? That has nothing to do with anything related to a virus. It's just everything to do with the government squeezing you a little bit. And then in California, a small town in California, it's around Napa. There's these county-owned or city-owned trails that are used for bike riding and walking and hiking. And they've banned bicycle riding because of COVID-19, but you can still walk on those trails. And there's other instances like that you're seeing coast to coast that just make no sense whatsoever. There's no way you could possibly tie it to a virus. It's just the government squeezing people. Washington State's fishing, for example. Most of Washington State is completely unpopulated. The Seattle, Pierce County, King County, Pierce County area is massively populated. The rest of the state, if you want to go hiking and disappear and not see another human being the whole time you're gone, you can do it. It's easy. It's not like, back east where camping means you're in a refugee camp, which they call a, campground, and your tent's right next to somebody else's tent. That's not the situation out there. You can disappear. And if you could go fishing and be miles from the nearest human being on a riverbank somewhere, but that is illegal because of the COVID. You can't get more distanced from people than that.
No.
So I bring those. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's like just like when I got that last Appalachian Trail section hike in, and people were asking me, hey, what's going on with this COVID situation? Because they haven't been in touch with anybody from civilization in a while, as far as community goes. And they're like, what's going on in the world? And I'll be like, oh yeah, the governor just said you have to maintain 6 foot social distancing, and you can't be in no more groups. You can't be in groups of no more than 10 people, and all this craziness. And they're like, oh man, that's crazy. And then next thing I hike my 20 miles, and I come down and I go back home, and I see that they're putting signs up on the Appalachian Trail. The National Trail Conservancy is putting up signs encouraging hikers to come down off the trail and to return to their communities.
Come down and get the COVID.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, this
insane.
Is stupid. I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever. Now, as I started thinking about it, though, here's what I started thinking about, Steve. But this is their right as Americans. What if they come down off the trail? Because you got to resupply if you're a through hiker, because you're going to be hiking 2,190 miles. You got to come down off the trail. You got to go to these mom and pop stores, and you got to replenish your food. Your hygiene items and things. And they get sick for being, in a store, they touch something and they go back on the trail, and then a week or two later, they're miles from help and they're alone, and but that's, like I said, that's their right.
Well, the same thing could happen
and they want to risk it.
Same thing could happen during flu season. You're never going to let anybody do anything because they might get sick.
Right.
But in that case, not everybody's doing 2,000 miles. A lot of people may just be doing sections like you do. I assume that's what you do. So what would coming down early? If you have to come down to where the car is that's going to pick you up, or to where your car is pre-positioned, if you have to come down to that point, how would it help you in the current state of things to come down early and be around more human beings sooner?
Yeah.
How does that possibly help anything?
It doesn't. All it's going to do is raise the risk factor for you, because while you are by yourself on the trail, or maybe with 1 or 2 people that weren't sick, you're going to come down now and you're going to go, in towns, go to work, and it doesn't make sense.
No. So when I look at this stuff, putting my tinfoil hat on, I see, since none of this makes sense, banning bicycles on a trail but allowing walking on the trail clearly makes no sense whatsoever. You can't logically, there's no doctor on this planet that could stand up and say why that is a medically based, action. Other than the fact that it's just, governments slowly turning the screws, slowly turning up the hot water for the frog that's, bathing in that nice lukewarm water in the pot on the stove. That's what I see. Conditioning people to completely controlling the strings that they pull. So now you're a student of martial law and such, and your books are based on that. How does one, if somebody's read your books, does this stuff wave more flags for them?
Uh, it can, because like you talk about somebody that could compare something, the content of any of my books that are based
Yeah,
on
yeah,
martial law
yeah.
with what's going on now.
Is there something they could have learned from your books that they can now look out the window and see in the real world and think, "Hey, what's going on here? Why are they doing that? Is this possible?" I mean,
Yeah, because if you look at like in the Tyrant series, if you go just at book one of the Tyrant series, at the very back, I tell this story, and at the very back of the book, I lay out all these. I call it factual. It's fiction, but I call it or faction. I mean, it's fiction, but I call it faction because it's fact-based fiction. And so everything that I write is all based on something factual. And so I had just wrote Oath Takers, and it did well. It became a bestseller, and I was encouraged to write, fiction. So I sat around, one night laying in my bed, just kind of staring up into the darkness, and this huge story began to come together, and it's all kind of based on the whole Oath Takers thing. Like, what would America become if Oath Takers became Oath Breakers? What if the people who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution completely neglected their oath and continued to write unconstitutional legislation to give unconstitutional mandates and directives, and everybody just kind of gradually kind of slips into this this world, and then in the back of the book you have all these executive orders that I pulled out of government archives that and one reviewer, you go look on Amazon. One reviewer said, at first, I'm like, yeah, the story was, I was wondering where's he going with this, but then when I got to the end and I read the executive orders, then it brought everything together, and it showed exactly what was going on. And those executive orders are real. And although Kennedy wrote several executive orders, one executive order that might turn off the electricity, another one that might seize control of fossil fuels, another executive order that might seize control of farmland and farm equipment. Obama wrote an executive order that takes all those and he just kind of compiles it all into one executive order. And that executive order is something that you kind of worry about. Can that really happen, or is it really going to happen? But you see kind of the tip of the iceberg now in this situation, because as Americans, before COVID, we're all like, they ain't going to tell me what to do. They ain't going to take my guns. But what happens when they close our churches down? We're all like, hey, okay, right. I'm not going to go to church. I'm just going to stay out of church. You're going to have to stay home now. Okay, I'll just quarantine myself at home. You have to wear a mask in public. Okay, I'll wear a mask in public. They start laying down these things, and America's they're just like giving it, these freedoms away. And it's just like you said, they're conditioning us. Because right now it seems like, this is just in the name of safety. Well, justifying the taking away of liberties to justify, the saving of lives is never good, because crossing the road is dangerous. Where does it stop? Are they going to say we can't go out after night because you might get hurt in the dark, or you can't cross the road because
every year we lose as many people in auto accidents as we did during the entire Vietnam War, and nobody cares,
Alcohol kills more people than guns do, and nobody cares. Cigarettes, same thing, nobody cares. Heart disease, nobody cares.
Heart disease, strokes, the flu, cancers, and a lot of the stuff that kills people you can catch communicably, but still there's no stripping of your freedoms involved like there has been with this. This is absolutely unprecedented, and then when you look at all the numbers that are out there, and you look at all the empty hospitals, right now in Tennessee, the only healthcare crisis we have is that since the hospitals have zero patients, like none, UT Medical Center the other day had 5 patients total, a major university medical center. A buddy of mine's sister is a real senior nurse there, and she's lucky she's senior because she'd got laid off like the rest of them. They've laid off all our healthcare employees because there's no patients. We're creating a healthcare crisis where one doesn't exist.
Yeah. But they're also jacking up the numbers of COVID patients, by saying somebody died of COVID when they really didn't die of COVID. A baby might have been born premature, but the mom died giving birth because she had COVID, and the baby was premature, so the baby died, of COVID, which, it's ludicrous.
If you're sick and
And
you get in a
I
car
saw,
wreck, that's what happens too when not only do people have political agendas to fulfill, but they also hospitals get paid $30,000 for every COVID death that they classify.
they get grants. Yeah,
So
and I saw I saw one of Lundy's posts. He said he had a friend that had a massive heart attack. They put on his death certificate that COVID killed him.
What
What is
COVID
this?
COVID did kill him, because the reason he probably was not going to the hospital and seeking care when he needed to was because the media has convinced him not to go to the hospital, because don't
Right.
go to the hospital, everything's falling apart, there's zombies in the hallways, it's insane. And my wife needs surgery right now, and she can't get surgery for like a month, and it's a ruptured disc in her back. It's kind of a big deal, but she can't get surgery because all the healthcare people have been laid off because there are no patients. So
This
what
is a glimpse into socialism, though.
Yeah. The hospitals collapse, and the government has to come in and save the day, right?
Yeah, and then people get put on a waiting list.
Right. Well, she kind of is feeling like that now. But so
The elderly will just die because they don't want nothing to. They can't contribute no more. Let's take care of Steve. He's still got a good working back, and his grandma can go.
that's what Italy was doing. One of the reasons Italy had so many deaths is that if you weren't in a certain category, they turned you away when you showed up sick from COVID. So if you were elderly or you had other conditions that made you high risk, or I guess low probability of pulling it off, they didn't even treat you. They told you to go home. So no wonder their death rate's so dang high. But that's what happens when you when you have government medicine tyranny. So with your books, you've got the Oath Takers, and you say that's a nonfiction?
Yeah, Oath Takers. I got 2 nonfiction books. Sorry for jiggling around there, but I got Oath Takers, which is I'm sorry, that's Surviving Martial Law. Oath Takers. And that's book 1 in the Patriot series, and then Surviving Martial Law, book 2.
Okay, so there's 2 nonfictions, and then your Tyrant, is that the fiction series?
Yeah. So right after I wrote Oath Takers, I told you a while ago that I started working on a faction book. What would happen if Oath Takers, became Oath Breakers, and of course, I get book 1, and I got I'm sorry, it's book 3, book 2, Main Core, and then book 3, Endgame. But that's exactly. Oh, you know what? There's a prequel too. I almost forgot it. I went back later and wrote the prequel to show, like, you're going to see more of this right now. This is more true to life what's going on right now, especially back whenever Obama was president and Al Qaeda was doing whatever they wanted to do.
And ISIS was spreading like a weed.
ISIS, yeah. ISIS was spreading like weeds. And then the borders just remain open, and people just pouring through the southern border, and there's no control of that. And how do you know who's coming in? You could have 1,000 ISIS people come in a day over the Rio Grande.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and we were told all that was the new normal. And we're still being bit by some of that today, but
yeah, it may not ever go away because they're in.
Right. Well, any of this stuff. Speaking of things that never go away, any of this stuff that these powers that the government's seizing, whether it's state or local, doesn't really matter. Governments tend to not give those powers back up so easily. It's setting a precedent, and especially since everybody is like, okay, we won't go to church, we won't do this, we won't mow our lawns, we won't get our haircuts. Anything you say, you've got politicians that, when this first started spreading around, actual elected sitting officials who openly tweeted things like they wanted all, infected people to go to Trump rallies to try to get as many of his supporters sick as possible. And now you're supposed to do everything those same politicians say to stay alive. Wait, what? What bizarre land is this all of a sudden,
It all sounds so fascist to me.
Yeah. So, but they're conditioning. So people are listening to these people, the same people who said, please go spread this virus to Trump supporters. Now they're listening to what those people are saying as if it's medical gospel. And these politicians and government officials are essentially seeing that it's working. And so what's the next crisis where these powers are going to be used? Now that the tyranny genie, if you want to say it that way, has been let out of the bottle. It's not going to be so easy to put it back in.
That's one of the things I said in Oath Takers. I'm like, they're just not going to come through and do sweeping gun control and sweeping, they're not going to walk, the big fear, a few years ago was, especially in Obama's 8 years, was that we're going to get a knock on the door and the government's going to be there taking our, it will never happen like that.
Now
What's
it'll be
going to
through
happen
red
is
flag laws.
yeah, well, it's going to be just a slow, gradual ebbing away of our rights, and the Americans will just gradually, fall asleep, like government singing us a lullaby about safety, and security, and we're just, tossing our rights away and not even knowing, and they might take it all, but it's going to be regulated to death, and for long there'll be nothing left.
Right. Yeah, it's one little piece at a time. So so folks, if you're interested in learning about the martial law aspects of things that may come to fruition, I highly recommend his his books on the subject there. Outside of that, you've also done a Western not too long ago, haven't you?
I did, and I got a lot of readers PMing me, direct messaging me that they want to know when Coulter Saloon Book 2 is coming out. It's on the back burner. I like you, I know you're working on a Western. I'm really stoked to get my hands on it and see what you can do, especially with your Tennessee twang.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have fun narrating that one.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be able to do it. I'm wondering, because you have a natural Tennessee twang. I'm wondering what will happen if you like up the ante on it a little bit. I mean, how much twang can you put in your twang?
You need to. Well, the book that I just finished, Breaking the Beast 2, the audiobook just released today. So I somehow magically on my first attempt jumped through all the technical hoops and got it approved. So it's for sale right now. That one, Breaking the Beast 2, Revenge of the Patriots. That one, I bring the characters to Tennessee and I put some special people in there. So I really had to redneck it up for some of them.
I saw that it was finally done. Congratulations on that. I put I plugged you on my Facebook page just in case I have anybody that's viewing this. It's not on Steven's page or on DD12. You can scroll down because I'm definitely sharing this onto my Facebook page, and it's down below. And you click on that link and sell him some audiobooks.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. But this is like my high society, official voice. You know what I sound like normally. I'm straight up banjo, but so that'll work out pretty good for the Western genre. Or there we are.
There we are.
That's Saloon.
Coulter Saloon. Yep, surviving in the Old West. And you said it real good the other day. When you're talking about the Old West really is just an old. It's like what we would consider an apocalypse was their everyday life.
Oh yeah.
In the 1800s and the early 1900s.
If you were homeless back
before.
then, you got an axe and you cut some trees down, you build a house.
Yeah, absolutely. And you claimed land back then. The government didn't own it all.
Right, and if you needed water, you dug your own well, or you found your own stream. You grew your own food. You hunted for your own food. You didn't have electricity ever. Nobody had ever had it. And now if the electricity goes out, people are like panicking. And by 3 or 4 days of the power being out, it's madness. So the things that we don't need at all seem required now. And if we had a major apocalyptic event that just took us back to, it isn't not just the 1800s of the Western genre, but all throughout human society prior to us, everybody else made it by just fine without running water and electricity and indoor plumbing, and they had a rough life and they had to work hard, but they did fine without Netflix. We could do it again too if we had to.
There's still people of the world, that are still living like that.
Yeah.
Third world countries. They they make do. I think it's in us. I mean, it's just it's an art, and it's something that's passed on. If like me and you, we lived in a time before video games. So if video gaming was gone, we may not even notice that it was even gone. Because we can make do. But I mean, and you're learning how to live off the grid, with your solar panels and stuff like that. But there was a time when nothing like that existed, and people are adapting to alternative forms of energy, where back in the day there was no forms of energy.
Right, right.
Nothing. We're trying to find creative ways to keep energy. Um, but I think the people back then, they're just it's like it's an all lost art, and it's I would like to get back to that. For me personally, I plan on when I retire from Illinois, I want to learn to homesteading and get off the grid, and just I want to get myself in a place where I feel comfortable if it does hit the fan and we don't have any electricity. I want to be able to survive. I just don't want to panic and not know what to do. I want to be able to grow all my fruit, vegetables. I know how to hunt, but getting it is going to be the problem if everybody's hunting. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah, that's where the
trapping.
little deer and everything's gonna be gone. That's where the little critters are
Yep.
gonna matter. The creepy crawlies,
Yep.
and not even fish because people are gonna fish out, but birds.
Birds.
We have a skeet thrower, an automated skeet thrower, and did you shoot that when we? Oh yeah, you guys shot that when you were here at the
I
house.
didn't shoot the skeet thrower. I shot the clay pigeons.
Yeah, yeah. Did you shoot with it? I should have said.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
that to me that's just really good fun. But that's a good skill because the birds, even if people wipe out whatever the local population of whatever bird you have is, there's still going to be other stuff that migrates through at different times. So being able
If
to
you could load your own shotgun shells.
yeah, or just have enough that you could never shoot them all. But
Yeah.
because
Yes.
you still need primers. And I'm a reloader, but I don't look at it as an apocalyptic thing because I still need primers. Even if I could take the old black powder cartridges and mix up my own black powder, I still got to have primers for them. So
Right, because they're manufactured.
right. Fella needs to be able. That's why I always joke about getting a flintlock, but guess you can make everything you need for that. But I digress. So what do you got coming down the pipe? So that's the books that you've got out. What do you got? What's up next for the folks that are wondering about
Oh
that?
man, I wish I shared with you earlier today.
Yeah, you
I guess
sent me
you
the
could call it a
cover,
beta.
and it
Yeah.
had the watermarks and stuff for the pictures. Otherwise, I was gonna stick it in this video, but
Yeah.
since
So
those pictures aren't owned yet, I can't really do that.
I'm actually recording off my phone, so I can't refer back to it. But
No, just tell us
actually
about
the
it. What's
guy
it
who
called?
did. Yeah. So it's called Lockdown, and it's in Hoff's New World series, and it's being published under Doomsday Press. And basically, Lockdown. It's about a man who was a police officer turned patrolman. All right, he was framed for a murder he didn't commit, and as he's being transferred from because he's convicted, and as he's being transferred to a protective custody unit, which is where he has to go because he is a former police officer, the MPs happen. And it just so happens that his transfer bus comes to stop on a railroad train that's barreling down and trashes the bus. And so now he's stuck in this. I'm not giving the story away, but I'm just saying this. This is part of the catalyst that where he finds himself having to make a decision because he's really been bent on black and white his entire life, like he's law and order, straight law and order, black and white, by the book kind of a guy. But now he's starting to see that the world isn't the way it used to be anymore. Now it's a whole new situation where laws aren't really going to matter, and so he has to kind of learn to redefine himself. He has to find out, does he hold on to his morals? Does he hold on to his ethics and his values and everything that made him who he was, define him who he was as a patrolman or I'm sorry, patrol officer, or does he adapt to the new situation? One thing's for certain though, he has to get back to his family because his family, he's got a couple kids and a wife, and he's got to get back to them. So he has to make a decision. If he flees from his, if he flees, he becomes, he's already a felon, becomes an escape felon, right? So that would make his situation worse. So he has to make a decision to adapt, to improvise, overcome that kind of situation. So that is actually, it's all the way through the editor, and it's gone on. The cover's gone on to the graphic book cover designer, and I approved it. Everything's as far as kind of, you could call it the beta version. It's still got the watermarks and stuff on it, but I'm expecting that to come back tomorrow, and then we should be on to getting it published, I think, after that.
Awesome. Well, when you get that the cover finalized, shoot me a copy and we'll stick it on the end of this video for future viewers.
Yeah.
So, and you said that's in Hoff's World, G. Michael Hoff's World.
Yeah, I didn't bring him in here with me. I didn't think I'd reference. But yeah, so he's got the new World Series, and it's like 5 or 6 books, I think. It starts with The End, which was an Amazon bestseller, and it goes on to Long Road and Sanctuary and on.
So that's his
so,
original stuff, right? I mean, that's like his first breakout series.
yeah, yeah. It's where he became a best-selling author. There's other. I think he did a children's book before that, but this was like his first fiction series where he was breakout as a post-apocalyptic author.
So where does this book fit in timeline-wise? Is it just as a spin-off off of some point in the book, or does it add to the timeline?
Well, so this takes place in Illinois, which I write everything I write about is generally places that I'm comfortable with or that I'm familiar with. If it's not, then I get on Google Earth, and I try to make things as visually stunning as possible, my stories that I write. But this takes place specifically in Illinois, up in Cook County, Chicago. So this takes place exactly where the initial EMPs start to happen. So, but if you're reading his book, The End, there's a series of explosions and bombings and different kind of terrorist threats that are happening around the United States, and it's all kind of leading up to a major catalyst of the story, which is when the EMPs begin to. Then there's like several of them, but this one happens over the western. Yeah, it's over the western sky in Illinois. And it kind of wipes out everything, electronic, and the planes are falling. The newer model vehicles are coming to a stop. All your electronics, your watches, if they're electronic, everything, television, every communication, everything shuts down. And that's the situation this guy finds him in, exactly at that spot in Hoff's timeline. So it's all integrated into that new World Series, and it takes place in that universe with the same President O'Connor, I believe is his name, and different. I don't refer to any other character, I don't think, from his story, except maybe the president, just to kind of fit it in. But since he didn't use Illinois, I stuck this story right there to give me complete creative liberty.
So it's a self-contained story that someone could read. They don't have to have read his series to read this, correct?
No,
it's
a
complete standalone story. Okay. That's what I was wondering about the timeline aspect of it. So you can read it on its own. It just happens to be in the world he created for his series. And then I guess if you like that world, reading it from your book, they could pick up in his series and kind of get a little more of it.
Yeah, then they could read about another character that Hoff created, and say, oh, okay, this is where this happened to Hogan's character. It's the same universe.
Okay, well, that sounds pretty cool. And what do you got going on? What's the projected release date?
I don't have a projected release date though. Originally it was March, and something happened that got pushed back to April, and now we're in May 1st. But we are actually in the final stages now of the publishing process. If I had to guess, and this is an absolute guess, I would say within a couple weeks. No date, but just I would say in a couple weeks.
Yeah, you're like me. I don't like to throw dates out there because then if you don't live up to it, you're a scoundrel.
Well, I don't I don't have one because, like I said, this is going through Doomsday Press, so it's out of my hands.
Oh, okay.
I wrote the book, and I approve, the editorial comments and changes and the graphic design. But other than that, I don't control any of the publishing dates or any of that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we'll keep our eyes out for that, and yeah, folks, which I'll mention this again later, but in the comments or in the description of this video, I'll basically put a link to his author page. So even though there's no link you could find on Amazon to get that book right now, if you just go to his author page, you'll be able to find everything that is out there in his name. So, beyond that, do you have anything coming up? You said Culture Saloon 2 is on hold. Is that like a long-term perma hold or?
It's not. It's not. I got. I don't want to. Is that sitting just underneath you perfectly there?
I'm sitting on
I
top of your
got.
book. Yeah.
I got. I got a title, a working title. It's gonna be. It's not gonna be Culture Saloon. It's gonna be Culture's Revenge, and it's gonna be book 2 of the series. But that being said, I got Lockdown coming out. I got book 3 of the After the Pulse series that I'm 13,000 words into. So that's going to be the next book after Lockdown that gets published. And then I want to hit a science fiction, I'll call it a sci-fi, a post-apocalyptic sci-fi thriller that's been burning a hole in my mind all the time. I got to get it on paper and get it. It's actually a short story in another book that I worked on with some other authors. And the short story is called Cataclysm, which is kind of like a prequel to, or a backstory. It could even be, it could be a backstory to what is coming in this book. And I don't have a working title for it yet, but I gotta get that on paper. And then after that, I'll work on Coulter's Revenge.
What about the shape-shifting werebear book that you mentioned off camera?
That's Care Bear. Care Bear.
They're not. It's
How'd
not
you screw that
werebears.
up?
People love it
No,
when the
Care Bear.
werewolf shifts into a bear. Depending on his
It's
mood.
a Care Bear, and it shifts when you stretch on it. How'd you mess that up?
Oh. Well, it sounds like me. You've got more plans than you've got time.
I do. I got a full-time job, and I got brats that live in the house still. I got things going on. I got a new camper, so I'm trying to get out and rest my mind sometimes.
If that, that could be an office. That could be a big tax deduction. There's kids in your house.
Right.
You can't write. You needed extra space. You couldn't afford to build onto the house or zoning whatever. So you had to have an extra home.
I have a camper, a little, yeah.
That's right. That's your office. So the whole thing should be tax deductible, right?
I'll talk about I'll talk about that to my tax person.
And dear IRS, we're being sincere. He really is using it for writing.
I am actually. I wrote some stuff out there. I will probably right now. I had some issues with it, so it's getting worked on.
They always have issues when they're brand new.
This one was done by me, user error.
Oh yeah, we bought a brand new fifth wheel in 2017, and it had a few little shakedown things, that we had to take it back for, but that's common from everybody I talk to. So you want to hit a couple questions?
Let's do this.
All right, from Boyd Craven, and this question's kind of turned into a running joke. For anybody that's watched more than a few of these, Doug, are you in fact a robot?
I have robotic parts.
he
Right there.
Boyd got that, or Boyd gave that question to someone else in one of our videos, and ever since then he's been using it. And he said, "Real question, how tall are you, bro?" And then some knucklehead right under that said, "Tall enough to nut punch with a straight-on shot."
I don't know who would have said that, Bird.
Maybe I've actually tried that before. It's the only way to get you away sometimes.
Just a little tap, it hurts worse. And yeah, it's about right. And Mr. Boyd, I am 6'5", and my arms hang down just low enough to slightly tap anybody that gets in my way.
No ego there at all.
Nope.
Okay, from Franklin Horton. What other post-apoc author did you serve in the Marines with? And you've mentioned this individual already, so.
Yeah, so.
So this is actually, just speaking of this other person, this is actually kind of how you officially launched your writing career, right? Because of your interactions with him? Yes.
So I don't know. I don't know if I've shared this. I've shared it before, but on different podcasts. By different. I don't even know where I shared it with. But actually, all right. So me and Jeff was in 1st Battalion, 1st Marines together from 1992 to 1995, I think, when he got out. He EAS, and then he got out, and in 1995, I went to Weapons and Field Training Battalion to be a marksmanship instructor. So at that point, and I got out in '96. I never saw him again. But later on, we're going several years down the road now until when I start 2014, when I started working on oath takers. In 2014, I'm looking up, and I have been for some time since the advent of the internet, all the people that I would ever served in the Marines with that I can remember the names for. Hoff was one of those guys, I never could locate him. And I think two reasons probably. I was either spelling his first name Jeff or his last name Hoff, and or a combination of both. But I never could find him. And one time I'm talking to a buddy of mine that was one of my best friends in the Marines, you know, and I spelled, you know, we're just texting back and forth and on Facebook Messenger, and I said, I'm still looking for Hoff, Hoff, and he sent back a text message, yeah, Hoff, yeah, Hoff was pretty cool, dude. I don't know what he's doing these days. And I'm like, wait a second, Hoff? He's like, yeah. I said, what? Remember the spelling of his first name? And Geoff. So I went on to Google, and I just started Googling around, and I found him. And I had to click on a picture, of course, just to confirm that it was him. And sure enough, it was him. So I reached out to him, and he quickly reached back to me, and we started talking. And he, right off the bat, it didn't take long. He was apologizing to me about something that happened when we was in the Marines, and I can't believe that he thought about this. So you know, being a military guy, if you lose military gear, like that's bad. Like especially something like I don't know, a gas mask that costs several $100s. And I don't know, someone stole mine because we were out on the parade deck, and it was 0 dark 30. I mean, it was dark. We were getting ready to deploy somewhere, and my gas mask just turned up missing. I couldn't find it. Well, Hoff at the time, I can't remember. I think he just became a sergeant, and so he was my squad leader. And I reported to him and told him that my gas mask was missing. And Hoff, he acquired me another gas mask. And you know what I mean by acquired.
You know, some other poor sap's gas mask was missing.
Exactly. So he was taking care of his Marines, right? That's what he did, you know. I mean, he didn't hand it to me and say, here, you old Hogan, keep better tab on your gear. I mean, he shoved that gas mask into my gut so hard that I lost my wind. And I'm like, I didn't think nothing of it. I deserved it. You know, I lost my gas mask, and he went and he acquired me a new one. And I thought nothing of it. But years down the road, you know, after I find him, we start talking. He's like, by the way, I just want to apologize for that incident. I'm like, what incident? He says, the gas mask incident. I'm like, oh. I was kind of flattered that he remembered that and was humble enough to apologize for something that happened over 20 years ago.
That's cool.
And yeah. So he apologized for that, and that was something that was weighing on him because, you know, for someone to apologize 20-some years later for something like that, it meant something to me. But I said, man, I've been writing. I had a typewriter, you know, I'd been writing for years, just stuff, you know. I started like a fantasy story, you know, and I've been writing, you know, various religious articles and things like that from, you know, just sermons and stuff, you know. I was for the church, and one day, you know, he's talking to me, and he's like, man, he's like, I can coach you through, you know, a book. You want to start, you know, putting because I had already wrote a whole bunch of political stuff, and I had a blog, and he's like, if you want to write a book, I can coach you through the whole process. And he mentored me through the entire process for Oath Takers, which was my first book. And then after Oath Takers was done, he said, you should write fiction. And I said, I can't write fiction. I can't come up with anything, you know. And that was when I was laying around in bed thinking, you know, I think I can do this. And the Tyrants series started to come into play into my mind, and I was on my own after that, you know, because the process is the same every time.
Yeah, once you nail it down the first time.
Yeah, you know, it's the same for every book. You know, there's a difference between, I think nonfiction is a lot more difficult writing than fiction is.
Oh yeah, everything has to be right.
Boundaries.
You can't just make it up.
Yeah, you got to slow down. You got to do your homework. I mean, there's a lot of homework that's had even in fiction stories, but when you
If it's
digging
fiction
into
based on
nonfiction,
reality, yeah. I often look at the people who write fantasy and stuff, and I'm envious of them because they can't get anything wrong because they make it all up.
it's
you
completely
know,
made up.
at least in our worlds, we still have to be correct about what we're writing about.
Hmm. Yep. But yeah, so Hoff, I started Marines with Hoff. He was the one that got me into writing, and that's that's that.
Awesome, that's a cool story. And, um, everybody I've ever known in the military. I imagine somebody out there that has, but most people never regret it. And some of the people that, and I still, a lot of people I keep in contact with on a daily basis were all folks that I've, met there and the people you think about on a regular basis. Even though at this age it may have been a small window because I had 20 years of it, but still, those people are etched permanently into your mind. It's very rarely will you find someone that was in the service who says they wouldn't have done it all over again. And this right
Yeah.
here is a perfect example. The how everybody sticks together and the brotherhood is still there years later.
I think the Marines brought out. I mean, because I was a punk, just a punk. I was a kid, just a punk kid,
We're still a punk.
and the Marines taught me responsibility, and just as the Navy taught you responsibility. I don't know how much of a adult-esque person you were before you went in, but I wasn't. I needed the Marines.
Well, I had to. I started working my official job the day I turned 16. As soon as I could, and
Hmm.
I had to. If I wanted to drive in high school and stuff like that, I had to fund everything myself. So by the time I went to the Navy, I had a work ethic established, but it definitely helped me grow up a bit, and definitely, well, I'm exactly where I am today because of it. I have no doubt that if I would have not went that route and if I would have stayed in my hometown, there's no chance I would be a pilot managing a flight department, a big corporate flight department, um, a writer, all the other stuff that I'm doing. I would probably still be right there, and so
It takes a lot of discipline.
it definitely, and that's where it all came from. I finished my 4 year degree while I was on active duty, having to work all day and spend all your off time doing homework and doing classes, and by the time you get through all of that kind of stuff, everything in life seems a possible, and you know you
Hmm.
you you don't hesitate to jump right into things.
Hmm.
Everything that I've ever accomplished in my life, anybody could do it. You just got to take the first step, and that's one of the things you get out of the military. You take a lot of steps that you didn't choose to take on your own, and eventually you learn that those are you need to do those things. It gives you the confidence, rather, to be able to do those things.
Huge confidence booster.
Um, W.J. Lundy, being a fellow military guy, he's got a military-related question for you. That's
Chief.
good timing. Yeah. Chief Wilhelm, um, what's your least favorite MRE? Oh, wait, I bet you're one of those weirdos that like them.
I did not like MREs. Um, golly, how long has he been in the Army?
He's Navy now. He was Army a long time ago.
Navy? Well, everybody deserves a break. I mean, I'm thinking.
Well, he was Army. He upgraded.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. Um, yeah, I read that and I laughed because I'm like was not one of the guys. I always trade. Everybody in the military. I don't care what branch you're in. If you were in the field and you were handed, a bag and like an MRE, like the little brown. There were when I was in anyway. The brown bag MREs, and you're tearing that thing open. You're looking for something to trade, right?
Cigarettes in prison.
and I'm trying to remember. We call them a la rotten. Remember potatoes a la gratin?
Yeah.
Were those? Yeah. So we called them. I hated that the worst because growing up, I didn't like. I love them now. I love. Oh, what's the cheese potatoes called? I can't
Those
remember what it's
instant
called.
ones, the little box instant potatoes.
They put the cheese in. It's got a specific kind of name, but
Au gratin.
The cheap.
Au
Yeah,
gratin.
yeah. Well, I mean, I like those now as an adult, but as a child, I hated them. And my stepmom would make me. She would like wicked. So I would go over to
That's why you
to
hated them.
my father's house. I'd go to my father's house, and she would make them on purpose because she knew I hated them. And I carried that with me into the military. And so I pulled out those, potatoes. Potatoes are rotten because all they were just overcooked, mushy. This is how I thought of it as a young man. But now, like, these are good. But those are the first things I hated getting that. I hated it. I would rather eat anything else that they offered up. But those were, to me, at that time, were disgusting.
See, I was a picky eater when I was a kid. But I'm like a human garbage can now. Of course, you've witnessed
Did you
that.
ever make
We've done eating challenges together. What
I
was that?
know when I want
Was it a Carolina Reaper? Is that what that was?
that was a yeah, was it? Is either Carolina Reaper
I
or
don't
Ghost
remember.
Pepper? I can't remember.
It was
I can't
yellow,
either, but
and we were in
I
Carolina.
think you ate a bigger piece than me, and you manned it. I almost had to turn in my man card, but you did a better job than I did. You eat a whole lot more spicy things than I do. But you got to give me kudos, man, because I did that Packy one chip challenge thing, and it's 2 million Scoville units, the hottest chip in the world, and I did nothing. I got nothing to drink for 5 minutes. That was crazy hot.
Yeah.
That's
So
on my YouTube channel.
there comes a point where it's no longer fun.
Well, I think once you hit a certain heat element, like I don't know what the Scoville unit is, but there's a certain Scoville where the pain is just optimized. It doesn't matter because it's 10 trillion Scoville units. It's like the pain is optimized. Your tongue is on fire. You swallowed hot molten lava, and it doesn't get any hotter than that.
I was in Kearney, Nebraska once with the first airline I flew for. It was a little turboprop 19-seat commuter, and we'd overnight in these tiny little towns where the people that lived in the towns didn't even know they had an airport, And so we're at this little local wing place, and they had the Inferno Wings Challenge. It was just 8 wings, and I ate hot stuff all the time. And so I went for it. And, of course, when the waitress brought them out, she had this list of rules, and one of the rules was that you couldn't wear gloves. That's a red flag, So I went through with it, and, with the first wing, I was like, okay, this is going to be serious, but I can pull it off. By the second wing, I was like, ooh, here we go. And by the third wing, I was mad at myself. It's like, what have you done?
Were they all made of the same hot sauce? Or
Yeah, they were all the same. It was just starting to seep in, And
like slow burners.
yeah, and wing 3 through 8 was kind of all the same. I was looking at the front door of the restaurant, envisioning EMTs busting through with a gurney to rescue me, because my body was like having fits. You had like snot coming out of your ears and stuff, which is like, how is that even possible? Just like the weirdest. Your body was just going into convulsions and sweating. My lips were swelling up, and all the people I was with, we were with like the station agents that worked at the airport, and then the other pilots and stuff, and nobody was like laughing and having a good time. They were looking at me like, is he gonna be okay?
Is he all right?
Should we call for help? And
everybody had 911 on their cell phone. They're waiting to hit the dial button.
Yeah, well, that was pre-cell phone days. So yeah, it was '90s, dude. So then I sprinted to the bathroom when I was done. Of course, the waitress had to come and inspect the wings, make sure you got everything off the bone. And once she gave me the thumbs up, I bolted to the restroom. There's a soap dispenser on the wall. My head's under the soap dispenser, and I'm just bam, 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 just pumping soap into my mouth, scrubbing my mouth out with just soap on the wall. And I was just frothing, face covered with soap. And these people coming in and out of the bathroom have no idea what I just did, looking at me like, what the heck is wrong with that guy? It basically ruined my night. But hey, I got the T-shirt.
Well, yeah.
I still have that T-shirt to this day, too.
Eating soap would ruin anybody's night.
Oh, the soap was probably the highlight of the night, trust me. But so I think ever since then, I've been able to do torturous things with hot foods. So I've, I guess, it's kind of like going to the gym and working out, building your hot muscles up. Next up, Chad Rudolph. Everybody knows he's a cuddly guy. How did you learn to give the best bro hugs? Is there a backstory to this?
No. You know what? I like Chad in person. Like I told him. In
person, but not online.
In person. Well, I'll tell him, and I've told him to his face. He he comes off a little abrasive, like, in text messages and chats and stuff like that. Just but when you with him, he's a teddy bear. I mean, he's a down to earth. He's a smooth talk. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And I said, man, I like you better in person. I told him, I said, you're kind of a douche on the internet. I can't remember what I told him, but. But no, I'm very secure in my masculinity. I ain't got no problems giving guys hugs or anything like that. And I didn't learn it from my father because he was never he was out of my life pretty much when I was 6 years old, and I never really learned anything like that. I probably going to church, in church, you handshake people, men, women, you give your brothers hugs and stuff like that. And at work even, I got no problem, shaking a hand and giving somebody, especially, if somebody respects you a lot, and they want to give you like a bro hug or something like that. I'm okay with it. I got no problem with it because like I said, I'm very secure in my masculinity, and I'm not worried about it.
Typically somebody that's secure in their masculinity doesn't constantly have to say they're secure in their masculinity. That's kind of a red flag. just so you know.
Not here, it's not. But yeah. So but where was I? Can't remember when I first met Chad. Was it? Yeah. You know what? I think first time I gave him. I hugged him at HLS at Heritage Life Skills, and I hugged him at Prepper Camp. And I can't remember if he did he go to Mountain Survival Preparedness? If he did, I would have hugged him there. I try to give everybody a handshake and a hug before I leave. I don't care who they are.
I remember having to pull a knife on you at Prepper Camp to get you away from me.
You know what? Don't lie. I got.
I got pictures, dude.
It's not lying, but I got pictures. I got pictures of you hugging me. So you can't.
I doubt that. You're gonna have to produce that.
No, I will produce that. I'll produce that. I think you might have shared that picture with it. I remember that. I remember you pulling a knife on me because, if I remember right, we were messing around at it was Prepper Camp, and I was trying to give you a hug, and you were like, no, and people were like they were egging me on, like give him a hug, give him a hug. And you had some other people, give him a hug from behind, all this other crazy stuff, But you had the knife out, and at one point you put it up, I think, and I went to wrestle you around, and you wiggled out of me and away from me, and you got out of the way. I come here, you're like, no, I'm afraid.
Big man, scary. He's scary. You touchy. Let me show you on the doll.
Man bed.
Show me on the doll where Douglas touched you.
We have good times every time we get together. That's why I like meeting up with you guys. It's fun. It's always fun.
Here, Lisa has an actual writing question. I would have thought that. Sorry for my look.
Mama?
Forgive my looking down. My iPad battery was about to blink out, so I had to plug it in. So anyway, are you a pantser or a plotter? What is your process when you start a book?
I used to be a pantser, and for the readers, basically what that means is, they just write they write completely organic, like they don't really have any kind of plot points laid out or any kind of direction. They just sit down and start writing.
That's me.
I did that. What's that?
That's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
I did that with the entire Tyrant series. I did it with Tori's Journey. I did it with Homestead and Deadfall. I did it with Blood Core, No Light Beyond. I did it with my story in Archie's Heart. I did it with the entire Tyrant series. I did say that already. Where I stopped at was whenever I read a book. It's written for authors, by an author, for author. Of course, written by an author, for authors. And in that
Saves
book,
a Cat writes a novel.
Thank you. I have it right here, actually. Anybody out there aspiring to be an author, read this book. Anyway, I guess you've read it, right?
I've got the audio version. Franklin turned me onto it.
Okay, so what I do now is like a hybrid of both of those. So, like I said, I have a long history of just doing it, as just writing organically. But once I read Save the Cat, I'm like, let me try to improvise this a little bit, all right? And I use an outline. I actually have a board in the other room here, just on the other side of this wall, much like this pegboard here, but I have I have where I'm supposed to be at 10% of the book, at 15% of the book, at 20%, and I put my ideas on that pegboard. This is where my character should be. So I basically from point A to point B, I write organically. I just make it completely up as I get from this point to this point. I don't write out every single little detail as I get through, but I go from point to point and I write organically to plot points. And it has been so satisfying because I feel so much fulfilled, like I'm getting so much more of my story done in a way that is more designed for what I enjoy watching in movies. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah.
Like, you got like it applies to almost every movie. Like, we'll take for example Lord of the Rings. You have like what might be a victory, and then you have a defeat. Then the character will
The fun and games, the all is lost.
Yes, and it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's what keeps the reader on the edge of their seat. Wondering, oh my God, this is I can't believe he pulled that off. And then it's, oh God, he didn't really pull it off. And it just keeps going back and forth until the main character finally realizes something. So I still do it organically, but I also use plot points. So I have a hybrid of the two.
Yeah, I think I always accidentally did that because what I always referred, how I explained it to people was I said I watch a movie in my head and I'd write down what I see. And it always flows like a movie, like a motion picture movie. Out of my mind. So I think I was kind of accidentally hitting those plot points.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it
But
works.
you're kind of like you when I of course I listened to the audiobook version. There was a lot of little light bulbs going off, and basically for me it kind of turned into kind of more of a checklist. Like, well, let me make sure I'm satisfying all these things instead of just accidentally doing it just because. But that is a very good book, and I highly recommend it as well.
Why I wouldn't, I mean, the reason why I like the print version so much better is because there's like a checklist that is put in this thing. So unless you are listening to the audio version and you actually write out the checklist,
she has the PDFs online. You can download and print.
There you go. All right, that's cool.
So quit being a naysayer.
Yep. Yep.
She refers to, and all throughout the audiobook too, she refers to what she wants you to go print off and look at. But for people, there's a lot of people, and me included, I can't read just because I don't have the time. It's never going to happen. With a farm and homeschooling kids and flying job and writing and now audiobook producer. with all the stuff I got going on, I don't have time to do recreational reading. So in the last 2 days, I've been spraying pastures. Don't worry, folks. It was, unicorn dust and rainbow pixels. Nothing you'd get mad about. But spent 2 days on the tractor these last 2 days, and I went through an entire 11-hour Louis L'Amour Western. So that's my reading is when I'm doing stuff like that. So Joe Trott, awesome. Joe's a cool dude. He shows up at all the events.
He cracks me up all the time.
Yeah. So thanks to COVID-19, he sounds like me. He's starting off exactly like me now. Thanks to COVID-19, we've been seeing more and more oath breaking by parasites at all levels. How do we bring that to an end? 1. When do all of those who have taken the oath decide enough is enough? And lead the untrained but equally righteous masses into taking out the garbage. Have you read Late Bird Rising? It's free by Jason Krause. If so, what did you think? You'd no doubt heard the inspection waiting for the other shoe to drop. What do you think some of those shoes might be, and where do you anticipate them dropping? Now, this was a very complicated question, and I believe it's because he has read your books. So it isn't just a random, this is him taking everything that you've given him and putting it on pen to paper. So, how do we bring the oath breaking to an end was the first part of his question.
Yeah, let's address this one point at a time because I think it's still incredibly complicated. And there's not going to be one right answer because there's so many different variables. There's no way to answer this with one concrete solution or one concrete way that it's going to turn out, because what we're experiencing now, Let's look at the president, for example. We've taken a far turn from where we was, in the previous administration. You see what I'm saying?
A
So,
president who could literally get away with shipping guns to Mexican drug cartels to a president who can't get away with having a second scoop of ice cream.
or giving billions of dollars to our enemies.
Yeah, that too.
Iran.
And now we got a president who's stopping all of that garbage. Yeah.
Right. So you see how the tables kind of turned, and that's just one example, one variable. But then you got on a micro level, you have the individual police officers who, and I have to gear kind of this because it's going to be twofold. You're going to have police officers that will comply with what they're told. You're going to have the others that are not. But I think this is mostly going to come down to several variable micro factors, such as how old are they, if they're a younger police officer, they're probably going to be more gung ho and more ready to do exactly what they're told. And or you might have somebody that's older that's been a police officer for years, and they're well established in their wisdom, and they know exactly where they stand on the Constitution. And then you're going to have other factors like like a governor or a mayor that's threatening to lay off, suspend, fire, police officers if they don't uphold the law. And of those police officers, you're going to have people who have family members, who don't have family members. So you see what I'm saying? There's so many variables.
The person who really needs that retirement they'll lose if they don't follow through with the orders that they've been given.
You got like me. Like I'm 22 years into my career in the state, What if I was a police officer for 22 years? I'm just 3 years from retirement now, and I'm said, I'm threatened to arrest people because they're playing. They got a woman has her 2 children, in a public park against the governor's orders, against the mayor's orders. If I don't uphold that, if I don't do that, if I don't arrest those as I'm given a direct order to do so, I could lose 22 years of my life.
Yeah. Two children that could have been cooped up in a tiny 500 square foot studio apartment, and they needed to get out of the house, and the mom was doing the right thing, and then you got to follow through with that. That would be, I don't envy the guys in those positions right now.
It's a very tough position because now where I stand on this. I'm a patriot in my own mind anyway. I'm very staunchly I'm very pro Constitution, but if I'm looking at tossing away the last 22 years of my life. I got that weighing on one side of, and another person saying, if you arrest her, if you do what you're told to do, you're an oath breaker. That kind of, I hope to God, I never have to, I'm glad I'm not in law enforcement right now.
Yeah.
Not in these times.
Yeah.
I got out at a good time.
And it gets progressively worse. I mean,
the
last administration was, literally having them assassinated with their war on police. But
that's exactly when I stopped policing. Remember when the sniping was happening? When people were sniping police officers? I had a full-time job.
Making fake 911 calls to get police officers to show up and then taking them out when they got there.
And then sniping them. Exactly. Yeah. Or you might have snipers. I mean, this is, not necessarily a police officer, but you have snipers, that sometimes, gunmen work in pairs. They might go, one gunman might go into some building and start shooting things up, and another person might pull the alarm. That's the worst thing you do, pull alarm in a building, because what happens is everybody goes running outside, and you got another sniper outside shooting people.
Right.
These things are coordinated. Anyway, that's a whole different track. But to answer that question, it's not a simple answer because there's so many variables, there's so many things that go into play. We're literally going to be forced to sit and watch things play out as they happen. It's incredibly hard to look into and to get a concise answer on.
Yeah, and so the book that he mentioned, Late Bird Rising, have you read that?
You've never read Late Bird Rising.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he might have went, because I don't remember any of that part. Did he go back? Can you tell if he went back and added some more edits to that? Because I don't remember reading that part of the
I'm on an iPad. I'm lucky to even be able to see Facebook.
Oh, you got Apple. I'm sorry. The forbidden fruit.
It's a company, Apple. Okay.
Yeah.
It's free.
Well.
It's free with unlimited cellular attached to it. So I use
Crapple. Crapple products.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see. Then he says, "You've no doubt heard the expression waiting for the other shoe to drop. What do you think some of these shoes might be, and where do you anticipate them dropping?" And again, Joe
Okay,
was
so
basically viewing all of the actions that have been going on with certain folks in government kind of the same way I am.
yeah, um, you kind of notice, and you gotta have your ear to the ground on a lot of these things and pay attention to, we're like right now, where's Maxine Waters been? Where's Nancy Pelosi at? Where's Chet? I haven't heard too much
Oh,
from these people. Have you?
Pelosi's been out there. She's been showing off her
Has she?
$24,000 freezer that's full of $1 million worth of ice cream, showing how
Okay.
she's staying at home with you. She's suffering with you.
Sometimes the reason why I brought that up is because to me, at least from where I'm listening and watching the news, is that they've been kind of quiet, more quiet than they have been, and usually, from my experience anyway, something stupid's going to happen. I always look, especially now that, like we talked about with COVID-19 earlier in the interview, where people are just, kind of laying their rights down, to stay safe, giving up their safety. I mean, their rights for safety. I look now for the other shoe to be, some kind of another manufactured crisis, whether, it's some kind of a massive, you know, um,
A food
uh,
shortage,
something. There's going to be something,
like the
and
one
it's going
that's
to
coming.
escalate every time. It could, eventually it's going to be guns,
Yeah, yeah.
because guns
We've
is the last thing keeping the world. Our Second Amendment keeps the world at bay.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of the same politicians that are kind of on board with the things that are going on are globalist, open borders minded folks, and they would gladly sell us out to the rest of the world. And I often ask, what in the world is chopping your own country up, and eh, what could you possibly have to gain from that? And then the only answer I can come up with is if you sink America on purpose, you're bound to think that you've got a place in whatever comes next. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Be a part of that ruling class, even if it's not the same ruling class, because there's no other reason to literally try to tank the economy, to try to bankrupt the nation, to have open borders where we're just overrun to the point that our healthcare systems and welfare systems and all of our social safety net programs go bankrupt, which all that's straight out of Cloward and Piven. So if anybody wants to read How to Destroy America, there's two Harvard guys that was a good Obama administration friends wrote. He was tight with the Clintons. They were tight with the Clintons too. But the Cloward and Piven strategy, I recommend you look that up because it's happening right now. Um, and so Janie Pettigrew. When might we expect something new and exciting from you? I think we answered that already. But hear
we
that?
kind of did it. Yeah,
You hear
yeah.
that? You hear
What
that?
was that?
No? It's a donkey
Yeah.
right outside my door. He on. We have one of our donkeys. We let him run loose,
How's
and
Hank? How's
that's
Hank
not
doing?
Hank. That's Jack. You mean the little mini
I
donkey?
know. I know. No, no.
Oh,
I'm talking about
Hank's.
Hank though. Your horse.
He's a character as always. But how many people have donkeys interrupt
We miss
their
Hank.
YouTube videos?
I know. Yeah. No, I don't remember. Your donkey would run up to us. I remember when we were there last time, or well, the only time. But Hank, I think Hank he stole our heart. We
He's the ham,
we
man.
miss Hank.
As soon as you start paying him attention, he's all over you like a dog. He's still Hank. He's the same ornery booger. Um, Boyd Craven, back to my line of thinking. How close do you think we are to martial law with the shenanigans that are going on in this country right now? Now, clearly, you're getting these questions for a reason.
Yeah. I think we're going to see nothing on the national level for a while because, like I outlined in Surviving Martial Law, we can't do it alone. There's going to be a huge percentage. I know there's a lot of naysayers out there that that don't believe that they believe the police officers, almost all of them, and it could be a lot, especially the way that things are graduating now because they're also being conditioned. You know, I don't know if you saw the protests. Where was the protest at? I can't remember what state it was at, but there was a protest where a bunch of guys were just standing out, conservative protesters, which they're never violent, right? They're just standing out there protesting, and then all these armed police officers come up with their shields and their batons, um, and meant to be like a show of force because all these people are gathering together outside of this Capitol where they're protesting because they're not wearing face masks and they're not, doing the social distancing thing. And so I guess the police officer was there as a show of threat. Well, that's all on a kind of like a small, we'll say micro level again. But later on, it might be something bigger, And as they get used to doing following these small orders, eventually the orders start graduating, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But in the end, I think that most police officers, if anything gets really bad, the police officers, especially the older ones, are going to go home and be with their family, protect their children, especially, and also the military. You know a lot of veterans, and you were in the military. When we know what a constitutional order is, and we know, what orders we're allowed to obey and what orders we're allowed to disobey, So I really see widespread splintering, factioning of the military and police because there can be no nationwide martial law without all the military, all the police, and that's still not going to be enough. And I outlined it by statistics using land mass, the size of the army, and the size of police departments and sheriff's departments. There's not enough people. There's literally like one person, one officer, or one military person to cover 1.5 to 2 football fields of land mass. And if you're talking like a cityscape, it's impossible. So this is what they have to look forward to, and it's not possible.
But look at what's going on today, where these cities with that kind of tyrannical mentality of government, cities and states, where they've actually set up rat on your neighbor hotlines. What was the one thing that the mayor of New York said? Usually they used to say snitches get stitches, but now snitches get paid because they pay people to rat out their neighbors. And there's really no shortage of people from what I've seen, especially the way people behave on social media, that if you're not towing the line that they've been told to tow, that they completely buy into, and if you violate those commands, they will rat you out. So I think we're getting conditioned two-phase. We're getting conditioned to toe the line, and we're getting conditioned to accept the fact that our rights can be curtailed anytime a crisis is declared. And I actually had one person who I've known all my life, and it shocked me when they said that. They actually said, well, we don't have any rights in a crisis. And they were serious. And I was like,
they believed it.
What? If that's the case, and my response to that was, if that's the case, anytime they need to, there'll be a crisis.
I always, when I hear those kind of stories, Steve, I always send people back to our founding fathers, like they weren't in a crisis. When they wrote the Declaration of Independence and sent it to King George, like they weren't fighting plagues and diseases that killed people.
Sure they were. Things were killing people constantly back then, but they did. They had smallpox. They had, Europe wasn't that long ago. They had the plague, and nobody knew what it was yet. Those guys were fighting.
On top of all that,
how do you
they're
think
fighting the world's largest government,
Army and Navy, right?
Yeah.
But at the same token, back to the conditioning thing, your average student that goes to public school in a major university today is taught that those guys were the terrorists. Those guys were the evil racists. You're not supposed to, follow their examples. It's back to that conditioning. They're being conditioned on multiple different levels. They're being conditioned in schools. They're being conditioned on TV. They're being conditioned by the curtailment of rights from government to the point that I don't see it happening right now because there's still people willing to stand up and protest things. But all they're going to need is for one of those people or a false flagged individual to go shooting up a Capitol building or shooting up a city hall. That might be enough to push it over the edge. But I think the conditioning from all different directions is leading to, maybe not with this administration, but with the future one, depending on how the elections go, leading to a situation where your books could come true.
Yeah, because like in Acts of Defiance, it's a novelette I wrote, a prequel to the Tyrant series, and we've even seen it since. Patriots. Do you remember Laverne? I'm having a brain fart right now. The cowboy hat guy that was shot by the federal police out there.
Fincom, Lavoy Fincom.
Lavoy Fincom.
That was an
Thank you.
assassination.
Yeah.
That was an ambush and assassination.
Right, but what we see there in those kind of situations, you have patriots being called right-wing extremists.
Right.
Right. So you're taking something positive and flipping around and making it negative, so that the narrative fits the agenda.
More conditioning.
And yes, and this is what's going to happen. We're going to see more and more of this. Like you were saying, maybe not this administration, but in the future.
Look at the tea parties. Look at the tea parties where you had, grandmothers and grandfathers and, going to these protests, and when everything was totally polite and peaceful, and as they would leave, they would pick up all the trash, and, they weren't burning down cities and tearing down signs, but if you watch the media, they were right-wing radical extremist homegrown terrorists,
Yeah, you watch the media that takes terrorist scenes from other countries and say, hey, this was happening in downtown Texas, and just blatantly creating fake news narrative, to paint their agenda.
Well, they've been doing that a
to
lot.
Get exactly what they want.
That's part of the conditioning too. It's so I think that I don't think it's like today. I think the stuff that's happening today is part of the process that will get us to your books coming into fruition, but I think the general theme that you're on is something that is very relevant. I think a lot of people need to read those and open their eyes to that kind of stuff.
I think Surviving Martial Law came at it was released at just the right time, because I've been watching it on Amazon like most authors do on their books, and it's funny because Oath Takers, ever since I remarked that Oath Takers made it book 1 in the Tyrant series, and after I wrote Surviving Martial Law, and that became book 2 in the Patriot series, those two books are fighting against another. There's a third contender called Good Cop, Girl Cop, and it's funny because I'm not Good Cop, Girl Cop. Like right now on Amazon, she's number 3 under bestsellers in urban, state, and local government law. Oath Taker is number 1. Surviving Martial Law is number 2, and then she's number 3. But tomorrow when I wake up, she might be, number 1 or number 2, and then Oath Takers, and Surviving Martial Law. And I've been watching this for weeks. These 3 books are almost always in the top 3, and they're vying. But it's just there's a dynamic there. I think like I just released it at just the right time, and I think it applies to everything we've talked about tonight and what's going on with the COVID situation.
Yeah, I definitely recommend folks look a little more into that kind of stuff, and your books are right up that alley. Okay, Megan McAllister Kingria. I'm sorry, I can't. If I massacred that name, I apologize. I can barely say my name. And yeah, she said, "Can we watch you eat more fun things on live video? So far, we've been entertained with Jelly Bellies at the DD12 event at the campground. I could eat those things all day long, even the Dirty Socks flavored ones. And that hot potato chip that was painful to watch. Also, maybe talk about what inspires you to write and how to get past writer's block."
Okay, so to answer your question, I'm an entertainer. I like to make people laugh. I have a blast making people laugh. And if I can eat something super duper hot like I did the Packy One Chip Challenge, to get people to laugh, or I'll do it. And do you remember? Did you hear the story about what happened with the jelly bean that I ate over there at the?
Well, I remember when they were handing out all those what are those called again? The Jelly Bellies that have all the nasty tastes. There's booger one.
Yeah, I can't remember either. It's some kind of jelly bean game. Some of them would taste like vomit, and others would taste like like a diaper or a dryer sheet, and just grass, just odd things, But I spun the little game thing, and I can't remember what I landed on, but I picked it up and I started chewing it. It was disgusting. I turned around, and I hacked that thing. It went fly. It happened in slow motion. It went flying through the air, and it hit Patty Glaspie's husband on the back of the neck. And by the time he turned around, I was ducked down. I was running away.
See, just like a firearm, you got to keep that thing pointed down at the ground. If you're gonna,
it's like everybody saw it. It was crazy.
Keep it angled down.
So
just go shooting off into the sky.
Megan, maybe Megan, if you put something down here, underneath some recommendations, maybe.
There you
I'm
go.
always up
There
for
you
a
go.
challenge.
Hear
I'm
that,
always up for a
folks?
challenge. So
Fill the comments threads with your food challenges for Doug.
if you think it'll make you laugh or get a smile out of you, I'll put some work into it.
I might fill that comment
What was her
section
next
myself.
question there?
Tell us what inspires you to write and how to get past writer's block.
Okay, first question: what inspires me to write? I'm a huge patriot. So what inspires me to write is movement in the news. It's what inspired me to write Oath Takers. I got angry, where our country was and where it was heading, where I saw it going, and that's why I wrote the Tyrant series, because I wanted to bring awareness to where our country would be if oath breakers or oath takers became oath breakers. And so it's generally a passion that I feel. And that being said, the science fiction thing that I have rolling around in my head right now, it's a little bit different. I'm a sci-fi fan. I've always loved sci-fi, aliens, predators. Like the movie Predator that came out in the late '80s, I think.
Yeah,
and all the alien movies, up to the newer ones. I love sci-fi movies, and so I guess my short story that I wrote called Cataclysm was well received, and I got a lot of high compliments on it. So that's why I'm going to work on that some more. The way I deal with writer's block is, it happens to every writer. I think different writers handle it differently. I get away from it when it happens. So if I'm writing and I come to a scene and I just can't get past it, I don't know where it's going to go from this point on, I turn off my laptop and I walk away.
Yeah, never
and
force
always,
it.
No, don't. Yeah, don't force anything, because if it doesn't feel right, you shouldn't be writing it.
Right.
It comes to you. It's usually something you hear on television, something you hear in a conversation.
Driving down the road,
just driving down the road, and your mind is freed up. Something will come to you, and that's when it's right to go back and to put it back, in writing, and just pick up where you left off. And generally, it's even a better idea than what you're working on before.
Okay. Joanne Epperson, where did you get them there? Where did you get them there dimples? She's talking like one of my folks out here. So where did you get them there dimples? Holy, that's interesting. Oh, is that a clothespin? Oh, I thought you were actually holding something with your dimple.
I'm pinching it.
That's why he manufactured them.
I should have said, yeah. I'm pinching it with my dimple to hold it in place.
And here's a more.
I'm actually growing.
Here's a more serious question of hers. When you kill someone in your books, is there really a deep-seated feeling in the way you go about it? I mean, like, did you kill them the way you wish you could in real life, asking for a friend?
So it was just complete happenstance that I had a character named Joanne Epperson in book 2 of After the Pulse in Deadfall, this book right here, and it just happenstance. I mean, it was, this person was bad and she needed to die. But no, when I kill somebody, it's I go for the effect. If you're not making the reader go, oh man, I don't think you did your job.
Yeah, I think people need to be gut punched every now and then, because it's not just, if only the guy in the red shirt dies on Star Trek, who's going to die every time. The stars are going to live. This is not any fun, and it's not realistic. The bad guys don't only kill the new guy. In real life, if me, you, and Franklin, Boyd, and Chad went into some kind of gunfight, somebody's going to die. Right. I mean, that's just the odds of it. And even if we ended up winning, chances are something would happen to one of us. And that's just how it is. So whether that person happens to be a favorite of somebody or not, it's kind of irrelevant when you look at the ugly truth of the real world.
Let me ask you a question, because I do this all the time. When I'm writing organically from point A to point B. Um, I might have a character that because I'm only focused on getting my main character from from the front of the book to the back of the book, and I got all these characters in between. If they're not fulfilling a major role, maybe I like them and I've invested a lot of thought into them and developed them as a character, but I write them organically into a situation they can't survive, and they got to die. Do you do that like I do? And you're like,
I
oh
don't.
man,
I don't necessarily take them out because I feel like they need to be taken out. I'll write a scene using your term organically. Let's say if it's a gunfight. In my term, it's watch the movie and write down what you see. But if I've got some kind of a battle or some kind of life or death situation going on, and you know A's happen, and then B's happen, and then C's happen, and to me, it's obvious the real world likely scenario of the outcome would be D. Whoever's standing there when D happens, it's almost like the real world is playing out in my head, or at least how I would see it. I'm not necessarily sitting there thinking, I'm going to kill Bob in this scene. Oh, in the next chapter, Bob's going to get it. It's never anything like that. It's like, well, it sucks to be Bob. He just happened to be standing in front of the door when those guys busted in shooting.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's almost like there's this real scenario playing out in my mind, and just whatever seems like what would have happened, I let it happen.
Well, that's kind of like what I,
Unless it's
what I
one of
do
you
is
guys,
like,
then you're guaranteed to die.
yeah, it's like, cause I will create a situation that I've really invested a lot I don't want to go back and delete some things I wrote to write this character out of the situation that I wrote the character into. Instead, if it's survivable, it's survivable. If it's not, the character's going to die. I'm not going to go back and rewrite it so the character can survive, especially if they don't have a major role to play down the road. That's the point I'm trying to make. Sometimes they just can't survive, and it goes back to the gut punch thing you brought up a while ago. You can't expect everybody to live. Some character that you like is going to die, and that to me puts a reader on the edge of their seat when they're reading, like, oh man, if he's going to kill her, who else is he going to kill?
And if they read your books on a regular basis and they know you don't hold your punches, you're gonna just lay stuff out there, not protect all these magic special characters, and only people outside of that realm are gonna suffer ills. Yeah, I think it
Mm-hmm.
gives you a lot more ability for the reader to be on the edge of their seat, wondering what's going to happen next, because you've already proven in your past works that you're not protecting the special circle and only killing the red shirt
Right.
guy.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to let bad things happen just to make it real.
To be a good writer.
Okay, we answered this one. She said, "So seriously, this is Joanne again. So seriously, are you going to be writing more sci-fi type books? We've covered that topic a few times."
Yeah. Yeah. I think because I actually got two sci-fi books. One's almost like this is something you'd like, because me and you had like a lot of deep intellectual conversations about the universe and religion both. I like you. I believe that science and religion agree. They don't contradict each other. They agree. And I've thought up a really good sci-fi story based on religious things, and that's something I'm gonna work on down the road. But it's not as soon as the Cataclysm. I'll call it the Cataclysm story or Fallout, however you wanna refer it.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Obviously, we've done it before. We can talk about that stuff all night. Remember, folks, science is not supposed to be a belief system. It's supposed to be a method of study. So,
Right.
and Samantha Joy Griffith Rankin. Does your family help you write?
No. No. I wish my daughter is too wrapped up in herself, and my son does his own thing, and my wife's got her own projects, and usually when I'm writing, it's my quiet time. Like, my wife will be taking a nap, and I'll be alone, and I'll pick up my laptop and open it up and start plugging away. I used to have a strict schedule where I wrote 2,000 words a day, and if you can stay that discipline, write 2,000 words a day, you can put a novel together in a month. So that was a schedule I had before, but my life dramatically changed after
You can put together a very
I had.
rough of a novel in a month. not a completed book
Right.
On the
Right.
shelf.
The story, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of resurrecting characters from previous books and killing them again?
Is this Joanne?
That is Brandon Fowler. He
Brandon?
she actually did ask that question, and then he
Yeah.
asked it again.
What's he doing? He copied and pasted it too, because that's like verbatim what
Yep.
what she wrote on there. No, I think he was gigging. He was gigging Joanne, but I am not going to resurrect anybody and slay them again unless I change their name. And that's happened a few times. I got a friend that I work with, and every time I autograph a book and give him a copy of it, I say, something like "Beware the hot dog stand." So he'll be reading the story, looking for the scene by the hot dog stand, and that's where I kill the character. But next to that thing covered next to a hot dog stand. And he's like, "Oh man, you killed me by a hot dog stand."
Hey, it's better than sitting on the toilet crying. Don't complain, right?
Right, yeah.
That's always a threat I use. I threaten to use on people. And Dean Jazzo, how do you foresee being able to get America back on a constitutional track of limited government and unlimited personal freedom when our whole public educational system, see, some of these guys sound just like me, when the whole public educational system seems to have been perverted away from that?
Dino's one of those older version patriots, like it was his kind of people that formed this country. And to answer his question, it's going to be radical. To get this country back on track, the answer is radical. And I dare not utter the words because it would mean brother against brother. And I don't like talking about it. But we need it's that radical thing is the only thing that's going to get us back. The famous quote, I can't remember who said it, the tree of liberty, and it has to be fed from time to time with blood of patriots.
Right.
And tyrants.
Right. And some people use the term correction event, like something big has to happen so that all the games have to stop mattering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't see it. If you're a Bible believing man like I am, I know you are, I don't see it going back the way it's supposed to be. It's my hope is in that. But since I've read the back of the book,
we're not in Revelation.
I know how it ends. We're getting close.
Right. Do you know who Amir Safadi? I can't pronounce his name. Amir Safadi. Do you know who he is?
No.
He's in Israel. He's got a YouTube channel. It's just pretty good stuff. You ought to check him out. But he was talking about that one time when somebody was asking him a question about, why isn't America in Revelation? Because you can clearly see Russia and you can see China and you can see other,
the eagle, yeah.
Yeah, you can see other things, and then he started saying, well, look, America's been a wonderful thing. It's done so many wonderful things for people around the world. It's lifted so many people out of poverty. It's did so many good things for people, regardless of what the media tells you. He said, but why would you want to be in the Bible? He said, look at what happens to all these countries that are in the Bible. That's not really something to aspire to.
Yeah.
It's not really a happy ending there with the nations. So, but yeah, we're not in there. So all good things must come to an end. We just want to do the best we can.
The Bible does say
that
good will be called evil, and evil will be called good, and that kind of stuff. We're seeing that now.
Oh yeah.
Like I said earlier, we're patriots are being called, right-wing extremists and that kind of stuff.
Oh, and I'm evil because I don't want a 40-year-old man to follow my 6-year-old daughter into the public restroom. And he's the one that's good. There you go.
They believe they're right. They believe they are right.
Right, and there's 10,000 of those examples that we could talk about all night. But
all night.
YouTube has its limits. So, and speaking of that, I think we're banging up against them. We're hitting an hour and 45 minutes. That's probably going to scare enough people away as it is. So that is all of the questions. That was the very last one. So thank you, every one of you folks that wrote in and added to this this wonderful conversation with your questions. We greatly appreciate it. Because quite frankly, I would have been bored to death talking to them if you guys weren't here to bail me out. But no, like I said, he's not only have I met him at events, he's actually been to my house before. So he's a great guy. I might have to stick one of our right-wing radical, gun nut militia type pictures at the end of this video for people. But anyway, folks, thanks again. I hope you enjoy. Hope we helped kill an hour and 45 minutes of your stay-at-home order or whatever it is you're under in the specific location where you had just happened to be. So thanks a lot, folks, and we'll see you again real soon.
Thanks, guys.